Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kayvon. I appreciate everyone for tuning in today. I hope you guys are all having a great day, a great weekend as we start with you Saturday morning here, getting ready for a great Week 7 of the NFL. We've got a good college slate as well. Big Ten is back. The Big Ten is back. The Pac-12 comes back in 2 weeks, November 7th. So Power 5 is all getting ready to go, and it's going to be something. You know, we've got a lot of football to look into. We've got some really big-time games going on in the NFL Week 7 here. But real quick on the college football thing with the Big Ten. So the Big Ten's coming back. Since they're starting so late, they've left no room for bye weeks or anything. So it's really going to be crunch time. And that's going to be the most interesting thing with this whole virus. How is that going to work if a team does have an outbreak like we've seen with a couple teams in the SEC with Florida and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects these teams. I know the Big Ten, they put a lot of stricter policies on how they're going about the virus than some of these other conferences, which you have to respect that, and you do. I know Commissioner of the Big Ten, Kevin Warren, he wanted to make sure that they did this right, and I respect that. I'm glad that the Big Ten is coming back. I'm glad that those players get to play. They've worked so hard to get this moment to play, so they deserve that. And I can't wait to see how it goes. A lot of great games. Ohio State's going to be a special team. Justin Fields, for all of you just big-time NFL fans, tune into Ohio State and Justin Fields because that guy is going to be going number 2 overall right behind Trevor Lawrence. And that is a guaranteed, especially with so many teams that need a quarterback this year. You for sure are going to see Justin Fields go number 2 overall. There's too many teams that are bad in the NFL right now. There's too many teams that need a quarterback in the NFL right now. So you're going to have Trevor Lawrence go 1. You're going to have Justin Fields go 2. And then there's also a guy named Trey Lance out of North Dakota that is going to go somewhere in the top 10 as well. And you never know, he could go all the way up as 3 depending on how the draft process ends up going. So a lot of exciting storylines for college going into NFL. Week 7 of the NFL is here. It's already started. We had a game of the lowly NFC East. I-95, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles battling it out for first place really in the division, which is a whole other story in itself. This division is by far one of the worst divisions I've seen in football in a long time. But hey, because of the rules, someone has to win it. And if you win it, you get a playoff game at home. I think that the NFL really needs to change that up. I think that you should be rewarded for winning your division where you do get to make the playoffs. But I think that it should be if you aren't at least 500, your record isn't 500 or better, as a division winner, then you should have to go on the road for a playoff game. You should not get the opportunity to host a playoff game. Hosting a playoff game in the NFL is such a pleasure. I mean, it really is something where you should be rewarded because you had an amazing season, so you get to host a playoff game. All right, you shouldn't be hosting a playoff game at 5-12 or 4-11 or whatever like that. So, really, just it's crazy to me that someone in this division will be hosting a playoff game, but that's the rules. And they had to play this game on Thursday night to see who's going to get closer to having that chance. And the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz, they had that chance. And I'll tell you what, I am very, 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 and I keep saying it over and over, impressed with Carson Wentz. What he does every single time he is out on the field, he leaves it all out on the field. He does. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of people, yes, he makes mistakes. Yes, he holds on the ball too long. Yes, he throws interceptions. But look why he holds on to the ball so long. Look why he's running around for his life. Who is he throwing the ball to? Who is his O-line? Every single person on the O-line on Thursday night was a backup other than Jason Kelce. Lane Johnson was in and out of the lineup. His receivers, I mean, there was a guy leading the team named Rich Rogers, 6 catches for 85 yards. Then you had Travis Fulgham, who has definitely come on as of late, but no one knew who he was before the season started. John Hightower, Greg Ward, who was a quarterback in college. These guys are no names. Every single week, Carson Wentz is introducing us to a new player that we have never heard of. And look, the thing about this is when you have a team with so many injuries and you have to carry that team on your back, it's not going to be very pretty. But at the end of the day, Carson Wentz is keeping this team in football games, or if they're getting down late, if they're getting down early, he's bringing them back in the games. He threw for 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception last night. The game-winning touchdown to Boston Scott was beautiful. The guy is doing everything he can. He's a leader, and I think the Wentz slander needs to stop. I think it really needs to stop. I don't know why people are hating on him, because he, to me, is doing everything he can to help this football team win games, and that's special. That's really special. I think the Eagles are definitely the favorites to win this division. After what we saw last Monday with the Cowboys, I don't see how any chance they get going. I just really don't, unless they have some resurrection, oh my goodness, their entire team plays better, the coaching staff is better, which is possible, but I think with Dak being out, that's a huge crush to them. Now, I will say this about the New York Giants. The New York Giants they're not a good football team. They don't have a lot of talent around them, but they play hard at least. There's a team on the other side in New York called the Jets that is just not a good football team at all. And they don't play hard very much. They don't really go all out. The Giants at least give it their all. And, everyone's laughing about the Daniel Jones moment of him, running for that 80-yard run and tripping and all that, which is funny. It's like one of those movies where you see like a sports bet happen and then a squirrel comes across, like an invisible squirrel, and he like trips on it. It was funny. It's all over the internet. It's a meme. But the thing is, Daniel Jones has some wheels on him. He can run. And he can sling it too. He has issues with protecting the football. He always has to fumble the football at least once a game, it feels like. So he's going to have to work on that. But I really do think overall the Giants are moving in a good direction. The last couple games, they've been very competitive. They've given it their all. Joe Judge is getting this team better each week. The problem is, I think Dave Gettleman is a big issue. He definitely does not get the best draft picks for this team that he should be getting, which is a big problem. Last night the number 4 overall pick, Andrew Thomas, just got destroyed by every single defensive lineman on the Eagles. It was just over and over and over again, and he was the number 4th overall pick. He cannot be that bad. And I know he's young, he can still get going, but it does not look good so far. I really think if they can get a new GM, and I don't want to, fire Dave Gettleman or anything like that, but I really do think that they should get a new GM here that can evaluate talent better, is willing to do more of the analytical stuff, is willing to go into the more modern style football, and really just sit back, figure out what this team needs offensively. Their defense is great. Their defense has gotten better and better each week. I really like their defense, but they got to figure out what they want to do with Daniel Jones. You can't see the thing about Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, and unfortunately it's over for Darnold because the Jets are so bad. He's not going to get another chance with the Jets because his team is going to get the number 1 overall pick and they're going to take Trevor Lawrence. But the problem is with Jones and Darnold, you can't really tell how good these guys are because there's no one there to protect them. There's not many things people they have to throw to, especially for Darnold's sake. Like, how can you grade and judge a quarterback when he has no one there to protect him? That's really hard to do, right? It's really hard to do. If he doesn't get the ball out in 2 seconds, he is dead. If Daniel Jones as well does not get the ball out in 2.3 seconds, he is dead. And that's why he runs around. That's why he ends up fumbling. That's why he'll throw a pick here and there. He has no one blocking for him. And Sam Darnold is the exact same way. And it's so hard to judge these guys' career when both of them had really good talent coming out of college. So I could totally see Sam Darnold being someone that goes on to a better team and actually becomes a very successful quarterback. I could totally see that. And then Jones, he's going to have more time with the Giants. They're not going to give up on him yet unless for some reason they get the number 2 overall pick and decide to take Justin Fields. But I don't see that happening. I think they win a couple more games, and I think they have a farther down pick where they just take someone to help the supporting cast and help Jones moving forward. So we'll see what happens, but overall, the Giants are moving in the right direction. If Evan Ingram just catches that pass at the end, then the game is over. And Evan Ingram really has got to be a better tight end. I mean, when you look at his size and his frame, he looks like he should be one of those beasts of a modern tight end. When you look at the big tight ends that are so good, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, these are big tight ends that have speed, that are good at blocking, catching. Like, Ingram looks like he should be in that class, but he just continues to disappoint. He really does, and I don't get it. And I think that's someone to watch about being on the trading block. I think that we could maybe see the Giants get rid of him and move on if they can get like a 2nd or 3rd round pick for him. But overall, really impressed with Carson Wentz. He's now sitting here at 2-4-1 with the Eagles team, and they're ahead of the NFC East, and that's just how it is. And look, their schedule moving forward, it's very friendly. After this, they play at home against Dallas on Sunday Night Football next week, so they have a whole week and 4 days to prepare for that game. Then they go into their bye week, get some of these players healthy, get some of these players off the injury report, and then they come out of the bye week and they're at the Giants again. They're at Cleveland. So those are 2 winnable games. So that's 3 winnable games in a row. They could go on a 4-game win streak here if they really, step up to the plate and ball out, and they should beat some of these teams. So after that, the schedule gets a little hard. They have to play Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona, and then they ended against Dallas and Washington. So, look, 2 teams that are both trending upwards, but 2 teams that have a lot of injuries, 2 teams that still have a lot of questions, and 2 teams that really, even if either of them won the playoffs, won the division, I don't see them making much havoc into the playoffs unless the Eagles could somehow get super healthy by then, and then they can kind of go on a run because they have a guy like Carson Wentz. But other than that, most likely the team that wins the NFC East is just going to lose in the first round. because the NFC as a whole is so good. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. We are into segment number 1 here, about 10 to 12 minutes into segment number 1, and we've got a great show in store, all right? We just broke down a lot that went from that Thursday night game. Philadelphia Eagles now 2-4-1. You remember they had that tie against the Bengals. They are now leading the division. So we saw that. We've got a lot of great games, especially. Man, can you guys, I cannot wait. I cannot wait for that Pittsburgh Steelers versus Tennessee Titans game coming up on Sunday. 2 undefeateds. There's 3 undefeated teams left. Those 2 are one of them, or 2 of them, I should say. So that will become maybe even 1 undefeated left, depending on what happens with Seattle against the Cardinals, which, by the way, I think is a very tough matchup for Seattle. So that's going to be interesting. High-scoring game there, no doubt about that. So it's going to be very, very interesting going down the stretch. And look, we've got Emmet Weinman, host of the Fantasy Football Show, GSMC Fantasy Football Show. He's going to join us for segment 3 and 4 as we talk all things football. And then, of course, he's going to get us set for your winning fantasy lineups moving forward. So we have a lot to do today. Can't wait to break it all down. And I want to move into this here before we take a quick break. And what that is I don't know if you guys have heard. I'm sure you all have. But the rumor is there are several teams interested in Antonio Brown. Now, real quick, for everyone that does not remember, Antonio Brown is suspended by the NFL still. When his suspension ends is after week 8. So technically, if he's signed with a team, he can play week 9. He can be out on that field for week 9, okay? The question is, who's going to sign him? Now, we've heard before that several teams are interested in him. Nothing ended up coming from it, okay? He still has to be checked out mentally by these teams to make sure that he can handle being signed by a team. Now, everyone's pointing to Seattle, and rightfully so. The culture fits him. Pete Carroll's taken on guys before that have had issues in the locker room and just issues all around with being a good teammate and kind of a hard-headed ego type guy. Pete Carroll's done that before. He's done great with him. Russell Wilson will do a great job with him because of the leader that he is. So I get why everyone is pointing to Seattle. Now, DK Metcalf, to me, has already emerged as a wide receiver 1. So I still think even with Antonio Brown there, DK Metcalf is the guy. But what Antonio Brown does is, if Antonio Brown came to Seattle, you would have DK Metcalf on one side, you'd have Antonio Brown on the other side, and then that would open up Tyler Lockett for the deep ball. Because there would be so much emphasis on those 2 guys that Tyler Lockett would be able to then spread the field with his speed, and they would be an almost impossible team to stop on offense. They still have problems on defense, but they would be an almost impossible team to stop on offense. So I think Seattle's very interesting. I also think the Ravens should be very interesting, but the problem is I don't think the Ravens want anything to do with Antonio Brown, which is interesting because they have so many connections towards Antonio Brown. You know, his cousin, Marquise Hollywood Brown, is on the team. Lamar Jackson is a big fan of Antonio Brown. They work out in the offseason together all the time. There's been rumors of them bringing him in before, but then you go and see the Ravens sign Dez Bryant, who has not played in a long time, coming off an Achilles injury, really don't know what he can do at this point. They go sign him, or they go work him out to possibly sign him to the practice squad. So it makes you think, well, if you're signing Dez Bryant to the practice squad, are you really going to bring in another receiver? So I don't know if the Ravens are a team that's in the conversation here. I think a team that really should be in the conversation is the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that we just saw play on Thursday night. Look, what did I tell every single week? I tweet this out too, at Kayvon_sports. Carson Wentz is introducing us to a new receiver we have never heard of every single week. Every single week, we're learning about a new name. Why not bring in an Antonio Brown that is very good still, I'm sure. He has too much talent. He works out hard. That's one thing you cannot take away from Antonio Brown. He is a hard worker. He puts in the work on the field during practice and during games, and he'll show up for you. I think that will fit the Eagles team perfectly. Now, all of this talk about teams is, remember, this is all saying that if Antonio Brown is mentally able to come in, pass the team's test that they're going to give him, make sure that he's able to gel with the team. These are all things that still has to happen. It's speculation right now that he will be able to do that, but with Antonio Brown and the things that we've seen in the past, you really have no clue, and you really cannot count on that until you see him sign on the dotted line that he is officially with a team. And that's just how it is. It's fair. That we've seen too much from Antonio Brown to start saying, oh, yep, no, he's for sure signing with the team. We have no clue. But if he does, my two favorite spots for him would be Seattle and Philadelphia, and then also Baltimore as well. But for some reason, I just have a feeling that Baltimore is not very interested in him. But they could use it. Their offense is just, something's off with it. And if they could bring in a number one threat guy like Antonio Brown, that would be that would be something special to help it up and help Lamar Jackson out as well in his development with passing the ball. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will then dive into a little bit more about the Tua situation. Ryan Fitzpatrick came out and had a heartfelt press conference, but was it really necessary for some of the things that he said? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about if this was the right move, and then we'll dive into the game of the week and look at some of the other games as well before we bring on Emmet Weinman. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere after this.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. I am your boy. How are we all doing today? Are we excited for some Saturday college football? Are we excited for some NFL Sunday? I know I am, and I know all my great listeners are as well, because you guys are die-hard football fans just like myself. A lot of teams are, sitting there ready to take off as contenders. Some teams are already bona fide contenders, and some are right on that line where we're going to find out as we go, are you really a contender or are you a pretender? And that's the best part about getting deeper into the season. We find out who's real, who's fake, what is the deal. Some teams, some fan bases, they're already studying for the draft to try and find their players for the future. And it's going to be a great week 7. So many good games. Now, let me catch you guys up on a little bit of news that's going on. If everybody, I'm sure you all are aware of this, but if you're not, the Sunday night football game was supposed to be the Oakland Raiders. Wow. Oh my. Oh, that is bad. That is the first time I have done that. So maybe I get a little bit of a pass, but I should drop down and do 10 push-ups right now because that you can't be doing that, right? The Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders were supposed to be hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on a great Sunday night game, a storyline game, so much history. If you guys remember John Gruden, he was the head coach of the Raiders for a long time. He then gets traded, goes and be the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then he actually wins a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, beating the Oakland Raiders in the Super Bowl that year of 2006, which is just so you don't see a lot of that happening. So that's funny. So now, John Gruden back as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, taking on his old team that he won a Super Bowl with in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's one storyline. Another storyline, everybody remembers 2001, the AFC Championship game where Tom Brady, the tuck rule, he technically fumbled the ball, but the NFL said that it was a forward pass motion. He was tucking the ball, he was throwing the ball away or whatever, and it ended up becoming a fumble. They ended up saying it's not a fumble. Remember, Charles Woodson was coming off the edge there, and the Patriots went on to win the Super Bowl. So that is always a storyline. Tom Brady was asked about in the media. He was laughing. He said it's always a topic of discussion whenever he runs into Gruden. You can just see Gruden still being mad about that to this day. So a lot of great storylines. Also, the Las Vegas Raiders coming off a bye so we kind of forget about teams when they're on a bye, but the last time we saw them out on the field, they gave the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl defending champions, their first loss of the season in Kansas City. So, and then, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week mollywopped the Green Bay Packers, giving Rodgers and the Packers their first loss of the season. So, two really good teams, two teams that I actually predicted to do very well this year. That game, though, unfortunately, is being flexed out of that Monday night game by the NFL. The NFL is moving that Monday night game to Sunday at 4:05. They're moving the Arizona Cardinals versus the Seattle Seahawks into the Sunday night game. Now, a lot of you are saying, why is that the case? This is the case. If you haven't been paying attention, the Raiders' offensive line, one of their best ones, Trent Brown, has tested positive for COVID. So he is put on the COVID-19 list, that IR list that they made for this year, where you have to be out for at least a certain amount of days until you have 2 negative tests and go through all these things, that protocols that the NFL lined up. So the problem with that, though, is he is on the offensive line. The offensive line is always together. They're in meetings together, they eat together, they hang out together. So because Trent Brown tested positive, the entire starting offensive line has to quarantine until they come back and see if their tests are positive or negative. So, you just to be clear here, guys, can you imagine going into a game with your entire offensive line not out, and not only is your entire starting offensive line out, but you didn't even get to practice with the backup because you guys were quarantined and away from the facility so that no one else tests positive, right? Like right now, the Raiders are not practicing. They're not, because they're worried about others testing positive. So they're waiting to get results back. They're waiting to see what to do with the NFL and moving forward. So the NFL had to move this game back to the 4:05 slot because they want to make sure that no matter what, we have a Sunday night football game. And there are no issues going on with the Cardinals, Seahawks. Both teams are fine when it comes to having players of COVID that have tested positive for COVID. There's none of that going on with these two teams. So they moved that to the Sunday night game to ensure that us fans will have a Sunday night game. You know, that is one of their most viewed games. They want their 20 million viewers to watch that game, right? So that is the big deal for the NFL. Now, the question becomes, will that Raiders game actually take place that Sunday? I do not think it will. I think they're going to have to move that game to a Monday night or even Tuesday night to see what happens, because I just don't know how the Raiders can go out there and play with a backup offensive line. Like, let me put it this way. If the Raiders go out there and play with an entire backup offensive line, I don't care if you have Josh Jacobs, I don't care who you have on your team, you can't play anyone in fantasy unless you have the Tampa Bay defense, because this is the NFL. You're going up against a very good defense, a defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles, and with a backup offensive line that hasn't even been able to practice. Oh my goodness, Derek Carr might die. He seriously might die back there. And obviously, I'm being facetious and just over exaggerating things here, but I'm not kidding. Like he will get hurt. This is the NFL, so. Hopefully what ends up happening is the rest of the offensive line that are quarantining right now don't actually test positive. They're just being there because of contact tracing. They don't test positive, and then they're able to get that game going on a Monday or Tuesday night. I still think even if those offensive linemen don't test positive, they should flex the game to a Monday or Tuesday so it gives the Raiders some time to practice and get going since they've been out of their facility. But we'll see what happens. So this is what we're living with in 2020. All right, you have to keep up with these storylines, especially for fantasy relevancy. And we'll talk about this with Emmet Weinman when he comes on the show. But you gotta look out for this stuff. And if your fantasy manager has not made exceptions to your league, where you can have an IR spot, you can move people around, you're able to take players out if the game doesn't happen. That stuff has to happen, and you have to pay attention to this stuff because this is what we're living with in 2020. So keep an eye on that. Remember, Trent Brown, one of the best offensive liners, test positive for COVID, so that game is no longer Sunday night. They are moving that to Sunday afternoon, and a very good game against the Arizona Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks. That moved to Sunday night, and I'm excited for that game. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, two very dynamic offenses. The Cardinals' defense looked amazing. Was that just because the Cowboys' offense sucks? Or are we really seeing a good defense here with what Vance Joseph has going on with that defense for the Cardinals? And they did that without Chandler Jones. Remember, he is out for the season. He got injured. So we'll see. But these are two good teams, and I'm excited for that game to see what happens from here. And there's another game and many other games that I'm excited for, especially the Pittsburgh Steelers Tennessee Titans game. Look, we have three teams that are undefeated left: the Seattle Seahawks, Tennessee Titans, and Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember, this game was supposed to happen in week 3, but because of the Titans outbreak, they had to move that game. And remember, it had Big Ben. He was pissed. He was saying that he's in a rhythm. He's an older player. This kind of hurts him. So there's kind of that dynamic and that animosity against these two teams. This is going to be a shootout. Let me explain. Whenever just look at the over-under for some of these games. This is going to be a shootout. Okay? So because of that, I would play as many fantasy players as you can for both these teams. I like the Steelers to end up winning this game. I do. I think that their defense is better than the Titans. And I think that at the end of the day, the defense will be able to make a stop where the Titans will not. But it's going to be a very good game. It is going to be a back and forth. Get yourself in front of the TV for this game. You're going to see two really good quarterbacks in Ryan Tannehill versus Ben Roethlisberger. You're going to see two good running backs. One, the best in the league right now, in Derrick Henry versus James Conner, who I think is a good running back as well. And then you're going to see a lot of really good skill position players. Look, the Pittsburgh Steelers are mastermind at finding wide receivers in the draft. I don't know who their scout is for wide receivers, but that man deserves a raise because he finds some of the best receivers out of nowhere. So you're going to see guys like Chase Claypool, rookie out of Notre Dame, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster. All right, you're going to see those guys' names all over the place on Sunday. Then for the Titans side, A.J. Brown has come on as one of the best receivers in the league out of Ole Miss, all right? Then you see guys like Jonnu Smith, who is probably like the fantasy sleeper of the year because of how well he's been playing. Corey Davis, who has kind of been a bust since being picked number 5 overall, but he has some impact. But then the main guy you're going to want to watch is Derrick Henry. Now, this is the thing. So far, the Steelers' defense has been able to shut everyone down from running the ball. You remember week 1, they completely shut Saquon Barkley down. They made him look like a normal human. They've shut that Browns running game down, which is a really, really good team, really, really good running team. That's what Kevin Stefanski hangs his hat on. They shut that down. Really excited to see now what they do against King Henry, who just throws players into the fans, puts memes all over the internet because he just dominates them. So I can't wait to see what happens there. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the 2 quarterbacks, the 2 offenses, and then which team can make a stop. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, because of their defense, they are going to have a better chance to make a stop or 2, and that's why they'll end up winning the game. And it's going to be fun, though. Definitely get in front of your TV screens, watch it. Now, we talked about this last show. I want to transition here. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. I want to talk about Tua, all right? Tua Tagovailoa is now going to be starting for Ryan Fitzpatrick, for the Miami Dolphins, and Brian Flores after their bye week. They're on a bye this week. They come back. They'll take on the Los Angeles Rams. Wow, I am messing these names up today. Whew! I need to do some push-ups after this show. They'll take on the Los Angeles Rams at home. And I said that this was, I'm excited for this to happen. I can't wait to see Tua out there. I can't wait to see how he plays. But I was confused on why they were making this move now, right? Because we have so much. We've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick go 3-3. He's playing good football. They're 1 game out of first place in the AFC East. So why make this move now? And I said at the beginning of the season, I said the Miami Dolphins should either play Tua week 1, or they should keep him on bubble wrap, keep him on the sidelines, learning from Ryan Fitzpatrick all season, and bring him out year 2, just like the Kansas City Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes. Especially if they're winning games, I said, if they're losing games, you might want to bring them in to show the fan base what you have, but I still think you should then just bring them in week 1, because what's the point of putting pressure on this kid? You're 3-3. The fans have hope for a wild card spot. Shoot, maybe even a division win at this point. What if you bring in this kid and he's bad? He's bad as his year 1. We've seen that happen with quarterbacks, and then they turn out to be good QBs. Like, it's going to diminish him. It's going to diminish his confidence. Now, I think he's such a good QB, such a strong QB, such a strong-minded kid that's so confident in himself and so humble as well, that he's going to be a good player. The problem is, I don't know if he's going to be able to be a good player right away. Because, again, the one thing that we have to remember is he held on to the ball too long in Alabama. That's how he got hurt with that hip injury. That's how he got his couple of ankle injuries. He cannot do that in the NFL. If he does that in the NFL, he will get hurt. He just will. And I don't wish injuries on anyone, but this is a fact. You cannot hold the ball too long in the NFL or you will get destroyed. And that Miami Dolphins offensive line is not very good. Yes, they have not taken many sacks, and a lot of people are going to turn their heads and say that. But the reason they haven't taken many sacks, and I said this last show, is because they have a veteran quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick who understands their weakness. He understands that the Miami Dolphins line is their weakness. So he knows, if I don't get this ball out in 2.5 seconds, it's over for me. I'm taking a sack. All right, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is actually pretty mobile. Now, Tua is too. At least he was in college. But we've seen a lot of quarterbacks that are mobile in college come into the NFL and are not as mobile because they're not as the most athletic one on the field, right? You see that with Baker Mayfield. You see that with other players. Dwayne Haskins, well, he wasn't that mobile in college either, but he was able to move around a little bit at least. In the NFL, that's not happening. Now, I think Tua is definitely more athletic and more mobile than both of those guys, but he's not going to be running for 20 yards and doing things like Daniel Jones and stuff like that out there, right? So it's all going to come down to his accuracy, which I think he has tremendous accuracy. There's no question about that. So it's going to come down to his decision-making and can he get the ball out fast enough. Brian Flores needs to be in this kid's ear every single play saying this. Hike, take the ball, look at your first read, second read, third read. If no one's open, throw the damn ball away right now. I don't care if you get intentional grounding. I do not care. Like, he needs to explain this to Tua. Take the intentional grounding, take the penalty, do not take the sack. Because every time this kid gets sacked, we are going to cringe, we're going to turn our eyes, and we're going to be worried about him getting hurt. We are. That's just how it is. That's how it's going to be his entire career because of his injury history in college, in Alabama. That's just how it goes when you have big time injuries in college, okay? Now, we've seen this before, where guys are injury prone in college, they come into the NFL, and they never get hurt again. And I pray that's the case with Tua. But we've also seen where guys are injury prone and they come in and they stay injury prone. We've seen where guys are not injury prone and they come into the NFL and they're injured every single week from there on out. All right, it's a whole different ball game in the NFL. But the one thing that I know is certain is if you hold on to that ball too long, it is going to destroy you. It's going to hurt your team, and it's most importantly going to hurt you as a player, and it's probably going to physically hurt you as well, especially against Aaron Donald week 1. That's why I was so confused about this decision. Now, I will say this. Remember, COVID changed their schedule up. Technically, they were supposed to play the Jets, right, after this bye. So technically, I think the whole game plan was to bring in Tua after the bye to play the Jets. Instead, they switched it up, and now they're playing the Rams. They played the Jets last week before the bye. But that's when I would say, okay, Brian Flores, why not just put him in before the bye and play the Jets? And I get it. Flores will answer, well, we wanted a whole bye week to get him going and all that stuff. I get it. I hope for the best. I can't wait to watch him play, but I will be worried watching. Now, I want to end this segment talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick. For those that didn't see it, go check it out. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he did a press conference, and it was very emotional. He was honest, and I cannot criticize him for being honest because we always ask our athletes to be honest, and he was honest, all right? He said that he felt like he got fired. He said that he felt like it was unfair. He said that it hurts really bad. My heart hurts. And then he went on to talk about how the way it came out was terrible. The PR side of things was terrible. He said that his son found out. He wanted to be able to want to tell his sons first, and his sons found out from their friends at school before he could even tell them because somehow it got out too early. So these things happen in the NFL. Now, the Miami Dolphins should be at fault for how it got out, all right? This should have been fair for Ryan Fitzpatrick to be able to tell his kids, his family, to be able to process this first before it gets all out to everyone. This should have been handled better by the Dolphins. But Ryan Fitzpatrick knew from the moment that they drafted Tua back in April that this day was going to come. All off season, he said, it's my job to prepare this kid. He knew it. And I know it probably stings a little bit more because they're 3-3 and he was playing good football. But I just don't understand why he's coming out here like that because really, he knew from the moment they drafted him that any week now, Tua is going to start. And really, he's lucky that it wasn't earlier. So I understand for him to be mad at the Dolphins. Totally fair. Totally get that. But the point about him feeling like he was, he's heartbroken, and I get that. You still have your emotions, and of course you're heartbroken. You might be done playing. That might have been your last NFL game against the Jets last week. But he's still a good player. He's still so fun to watch. But at the end of the day, he knew that this was coming. He knew it. You knew it. I knew it. He knew it. And now the Dolphins are sitting here at 3-3. And maybe they think Tua gives them a better chance to actually win now. But all in all, this is for their future. And they are playing him for their future. And we'll see what happens. But it's going to be exciting because now we have Justin Herbert out there, we got Joe Burrow out there, and we have Tua Tagovailoa out there. And I can't wait to see how it goes. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it is time to bring on Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show, where we are going to talk all things fantasy football, and he is going to give you the players to play to win your week. You do not want to miss this. Stay tuned right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. We are entering segment number 3 here. And as always, as I told you guys, as we do every single Saturday, and I told you earlier in the show, we are bringing on my man, Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. Emmet, I keep wanting to do this every time, and I keep forgetting. What's your Twitter handle? I know obviously you can reach us at, for me, GSMC_football. That's our company show. And then for his fantasy football, it's GSMC_F. Is it F fantasy?
Yeah, F football.
F football.
F football.
Gotcha. 2F
the
football.
The accounts are linked, so if you find one, you'll find the other.
Yeah, you'll definitely, people talk on them all the time. So, but what's your actual Twitter, like your personal one?
So it's my first, Emmet_Weinman, my last name, 22. If you don't know how to spell that, it's probably be in the description. So you get on that. I don't really post much, to be honest. I'm posting on the fantasy football one.
Yeah.
But, if you want to shoot him a note, hit me up on Twitter.
Yeah, no, I usually post on the football one too, but I know some, maybe hit a DM on start and sits and stuff like that. So just good to have it. But you'll see both of the Twitter accounts if you just go under GSMC_football, and then you'll see Emmett's there. Once again, Emmet Weinman, host of the Fantasy Football Show here at GSMC. All right, Emmet, let's get right into it, man. We've got a bunch to go. All of you that are new to this, every Saturday, we bring Emmet on for the last 2 segments. The first segment, we just discussed the real topics going on in the actual football world. And then the second segment, the fourth quarter, we do all fantasy football things. He gets you ready for the best plays for each position for you guys to win your lineup each week. So, Emmet, I think the biggest news, man, that we kind of got these last couple days is Tua. Tua finally gets the start. Justin Herbert's been starting. Joe Burrow's been starting. Tua was the other quarterback taken in the first round. What are your thoughts on this, man? Because look, Miami's 3-3. The Bills have, gone on a bit of a slide, so they're 4-2. So Miami's technically 1 game out of first place. Now, I think we all think the Bills are going to bounce back up, but 3-3. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been playing good football. What are your thoughts about this move by Miami? Do you like it? And why do you think they decided to make this move now?
Because they picked Tua in the 5th overall. I mean, you got to get him going. It's a matter of time before you start him. I think even Fitzpatrick knew that. It's just weird that you do it, this late. I thought,
exactly.
Start him versus the Jets game, that would have been the perfect game. But, I mean, this point in the season, you're almost at the halfway point. You almost want to have an identity or should have an identity of what your team is. So it's not like week 2, week 3 where you could put Tua in and it'll be like rolling the dice because you haven't seen what Fitzpatrick could do. But now you see Fitzpatrick, and he really hasn't played bad this year, but we all know Fitzpatrick has a ceiling.
Yeah.
So I mean, honestly, they started him because it was time. I mean, he's the 5th overall pick. You want to get him contact. You want to get him some hits. He hasn't played a game in how long?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been over 2 years or almost 2 years. So you want to get him in there, get some contact on him, and see what you got.
Yeah, no, and you're right. Like, that is the exact reason. I just kind of want to peel it back a little bit because it's weird to me, man. Like, first of all, you said it spot on. Why not start him against the Jets? Now they're about to start him against Aaron Donald, which, I mean, I don't want my rookie quarterback who has serious injury history. And let's be honest, the reason why Tua has gotten injured so much is because he has a problem holding on to the ball too long. He did it in Alabama. That's how he broke his hip. He should have thrown the ball away. Instead, he was holding on to it. And that is the last guy that you want to hold the ball going up against is Aaron Donald. I just think it's a little bit weird. And then did you have a chance to see what Ryan Fitzpatrick said in the press conference? Like, because this is another interesting part of it. You're spot on. Ryan Fitzpatrick knew from the moment they drafted Tua that anytime this is going to happen. So I was kind of shocked how he went about that press conference. Did you see any of that? And what were your thoughts on him feeling that way?
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, I get why he's hurt. I mean, you're at the middle of the season. I mean, you think it's when he says it's his team. I mean, you think the identity revolves around your quarterback, and he was grasping it. I mean, granted, the opponents they beat are pretty bad. I mean, the Jacksonville Jags are who we thought they were. Mm-hmm. The Jets are the Jets, and who else did they beat?
They beat the Niners, but that was with Jimmy G. That was still.
Oh my God! And they were bruised and battered. They were horrible.
Yeah.
So, you got to look at those 3 wins where they really Ryan Fitzpatrick-led wins. So, I mean, I get why he's upset, especially, with this being at the latter point of his career, if not, the final point of his career. I get why he would be upset in that regard, but I think he understands it more than anyone. I mean, it's a business.
Yeah, no doubt, and I think you're spot on. And then last question before we move on to the next topic here. We didn't talk in the off season. We started doing this segment once the season started, a little bit into it. So I didn't get your thoughts on those 3 quarterbacks: the Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and now Tua. We've seen what Joe Burrow and Justin can do coming into the season. What was your rank on those 3? First being the best, third being the worst, and like, how do you feel about Tua succeeding right off the bat, or you think it's going to be a little bit of a process for him?
In terms of like what I thought of them, I mean, pre-draft, I really loved Herbert. I just loved the intangibles. I loved the big arm. I loved the mobility. I loved his film. I was a huge fan of him. I thought he was going to come out the previous year, and the Giants were going to pick him. That's why it scared me a little bit. But being a Cowboys fan,
I thought he was too.
With the Chargers.
I really thought he was too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he didn't. He's better than Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins by a mile. I mean, I don't know why he didn't either. But I liked him as my best. I mean, Burrow, it was pretty obvious he was going to be the number 1 pick with him winning the Heisman. And then Tua, I mean, you got to love Tua. But, I mean, the only problem with the concern I have is he's brittle. I mean, he's got that injury history. And I don't know. I mean, I'd be holding my breath if he gets sacked. That's all I could say. But in terms of player, he definitely has magnificent talent. I mean, you don't come in down, what was he at that national championship game? Really, I mean, that was an impressive performance.
Yeah, no,
but going forward for Burrow, I mean, he's got to get some line help because he's just going to get the crap beat out of him. He's just getting his butt kicked every single game. I like him, but he's getting his butt kicked, and if you don't get some help, it's going to turn bad. Mm-hmm. Same with Tua. He better not get his butt kicked either. But Herbert's my favorite out of the 3.
Yep, and
I like him a lot.
I'm with you. I liked Herbert 2 years ago. I mean, everything you said, I've actually said those exact same things. I liked Herbert the most. I think that people were, for some reason, down on Herbert because of the team he played for. If you look at Joe Burrow, I mean, that man had more NFL talent than the Jets. On that LSU team, he literally had more NFL talent than the Jets have on their team right now. He was amazing because of the talent, and he's a good quarterback. But, Herbert really, that Oregon team didn't have as many pieces as a lot of people like to think, and I thought he was awesome. So I agree. I worry about Tua, and when I watch him next week, I am going to cringe and kind of turn my head every time I see him sacked because it's going to be it's going to be scary. But, you know, it's like you said, it's time for him to get hit. He hasn't played a game in probably 2 years, like you said, and I'm excited. You know, I want these young quarterbacks out there because that's fun for us. You know, me and you that are in the media talking about this stuff, this is what we want to talk about. We want to see how these guys progress and how they go from college to the NFL like this. And as cool and you know, fun Ryan Fitzpatrick is at time, let's be real. You know, this is Tua's team, like you said. So let's move on from here. Let's go to Antonio Brown. Obviously, big news. He can come back after week 8. His suspension is over. Antonio Brown, you know, is a nut job. I mean, I try and be as nice as I can with this stuff, but the guy has a lot of issues. And it's kind of hard to picture having him on your team right now, but clearly based off Adam Schefter and all these other reporters, there are several teams that are very interested in him. What are your thoughts on Antonio Brown coming back and which, you know, first of all, which team do you think would be best to grab him? And then how do you think his fantasy impact is? First, start with the team that would be best, and then we can go to the fantasy impact after that question.
I don't know. I mean, just because I don't want to bring him inside a locker room if I was a GM. I mean, there's just no way I would do it, regardless of what he could do. I mean, Seattle's definitely the front runner. They'll take a shot on him. Carroll's got a loose culture, but he's a strong culture, something that'll hold up for a lot of players.
Yeah.
Going there, I'd probably be his best fit. I mean, Russell Wilson's best quarterback in the league. DK Metcalf is the number one receiver. Tyler Lockett's always been a good receiver. Mm-hmm. So if you're plugging him in as your 3, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Baltimore Ravens, I mean, their offense just isn't clicking. He's got some good relationships, though, with Lamar, and I think Hollywood Brown is his cousin, I think. But
yeah.
I mean, he's got some relationships there, so he might be decent. But, I mean, their passing game is nowhere near as strong as Seattle's. Mm-hmm. And then I think Tom Brady's definitely campaigning for him, but I don't think they're going to sign him because of Bruce Arians.
Ooh, I did not think about that one. I did not think about that one at all. But you're right, because before the season, Bruce Arians wanted nothing to do with Antonio Brown. But you know Tom Brady for some reason really likes him. That is an interesting one, and you know, I wonder if they will do that, if Brady can get into Bruce Arians' head. In terms of the Baltimore thing, what are your thoughts about this? Because I think Baltimore's a great fit because, like you said, something's up with that offense. It's just, you know, they do a lot of Mark Andrews tight end, but something's up with the offense right now. But, dude, then they went out and signed your guy who you love, Dez Bryant, or they're bringing him in for a workout at least. Isn't that kind of telling, like saying, man, we don't care for Antonio Brown. Like, we'd rather bring in someone like Dez.
Yeah, that's what I thought, too. I was kind of scratching my head at that one because they were going to bring him in for a workout before all the COVID. And I mean, they were really looking at him heavy. So I think now with the practice squad being expanded, it's kind of like a free spot to where, okay, we'll bring him in because you can't bring players in for workouts. So you got to add them to the team.
Oh, that's right.
Bring him in, work him out, see what his shape's like, see what his medicals, everything like that. But I don't think I would consider him out of the race just because he has good relations with those players on the team. But, I mean, look, with Dez, I don't know what he's going to bring going forward. He doesn't impact special teams, so it's really hard to keep a guy like that at the bottom of your roster who doesn't produce on special teams. Mm-hmm. Maybe a red zone threat, but, I mean, I just don't think it's really going to mesh well, if I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point about special teams. And it's unfortunate. I would love to see Dez make a little comeback here and you know, help out a Super Bowl type team like that. But it would be interesting.
Yeah.
And then in terms of his fantasy impact, like, put it this way, you know, if you're in a 10-team league, 12-team league, should the listeners out there right now, if he hasn't been yet, should they be going and picking Antonio Brown up? Like, are you picking him up on your teams, or are you waiting to see where he goes? Do you think that he'll have impact no matter what? Like, if he gets signed, let's hypothetically, do you think he'll be that old Antonio Brown, or are you still kind of like, I actually don't want to drop a good player for him?
I don't think you'll ever see the Antonio Brown that was like, you know, first-round pick in fantasy. Guy was getting over 1,000 yards a year. I doubt it. But definitely talented. I mean, you could definitely, if he signs with Seattle, you could definitely see the upside there fantasy-wise. I'm not running to the waivers to pick him up just because I don't – I mean, look, Like, this guy was going to get signed by the Saints last year.
Yeah.
And they were going to bring him in. Sean Payton said, please come, Antonio. We want to work you out. We want to sign you. Please come to the facility. Don't be anything stupid. This dude brings an entire camera crew to the workout. And they just say, forget it. Get out of here. And then I think they brought in Brandon Marshall. They brought him in for like 2 months and
You're right.
just to fill a spot on the roster. But, I mean, how do you trust a guy like that? I can't do it. So I'm not going to waste a spot with him until maybe he produces, maybe he does something. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
No, the lasting memories we have of Antonio Brown is that, and then him wanting to wear his own helmet so bad that he was coloring the Raiders symbol and the paint on his own helmet so that he could go out there and wear it. That is something to. Wow, yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens with that. I do think Seattle is the front runner because of exactly what you said with Pete Carroll. But then it's also kind of like, man, they're undefeated. They're meshing so well. Like, go get someone for the defensive side of the ball. Why kind of hurt the chemistry possibly by bringing him in? And I know, like you stated it perfect, Pete Carroll's done this before, so we'll see what happens from here. I want to go to, in my opinion, the game of the week. I think you probably feel the same. We have 3 undefeated teams left. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tennessee Titans, and of course the Seattle Seahawks, who are just coming off a bye, going to be playing the Cardinals. But the Steelers and Titans, they face off in Tennessee. You know, that's the game that I'm going to be focused on the most. What are your thoughts about those teams? What are your thoughts about that game? Like, what are you thinking about those two teams moving forward? Do you think that they both have a chance to actually really contend and win the AFC?
Steelers, absolutely. They could definitely win the AFC. They're good at both sides of the ball. Roethlisberger isn't like all that, but I mean, he's still playing like Big Ben. Talking about the receivers they have, I mean, Deontay Johnson, he's back. So Tim Claypool, Juju, I mean, he just hasn't been the same, but still to have him as a second, third option is nice. So good on offense. Their D-line, their backers. They don't have Devin Bush for the long run, I think, so that might impact them a little bit, but still a really well-rounded team. Tennessee, they're really good on offense, but they got to get better on defense.
Yeah.
I think their defense was just horrible last week. They let Houston go up and down the field on them, but when having A.J. Brown back to be your number one receiver, Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry, Tannehill's not turning the ball over, so that's nice for them because if he doesn't turn the ball over, you could just let Derrick Henry rock out. And then probably the breakout candidate of the year in fantasy, Jonnu Smith. He's just been lights out for them. I mean, getting good blocking, getting open in the red zone. He's been a really friendly target for Tannehill. So if I had to pick the game, I'd probably say Steelers just because they're a bit more well-rounded. But Tennessee, if they get better on defense, they could be a good team.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think
are really a great team, I should say. I mean, they are a good team. They're 5-0.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it will be interesting. You know, Mike Vrabel is a defensive guy, so I'm sure he's trying to get that defense going. And Arthur Smith, man, the OC for the Titans, I think he's going to have a lot of looks for this coming off season as a possible head coach because he has done an amazing job with Ryan Tannehill. And a lot of this could be chalked up, which I think is fair, that Adam Gase was just completely terrible and didn't know how to use a guy like Tannehill. But the weapons that they put around Tannehill, and then I think some of the scheming that Arthur Smith has done to OC, I think he'll get some looks. But I want to ask you this because you said something that I actually think as well with the Steelers are for sure an AFC contender. You know, they can win it. Do you think they can actually win the AFC North too? Like, right now, when you look at the Ravens and you look at the Steelers, what are your thoughts on the division?
No, they could definitely beat the Ravens. The Ravens, they're just not really clicking. I mean, they're not like they weren't rolling teams like they were last year. I mean, they'll roll the Browns, but like everybody can roll the Browns in that division. So I don't know. I just think I think the Steelers are the most well-rounded. I think the Ravens, if they can get their offense back to what it was last year, get the running game going, get the passing game going a little bit better, they could contend with them. But I'd probably lean Steelers. But the Ravens, they just picked up Ngakoue, so that really is going to help their defense and make them really scary on D. So it's going to be a good game to watch. But yeah, the Steelers could definitely win it all.
Yeah, no doubt. And dude, you're spot on. The interesting thing about them picking up Ngakoue, the first thing I thought about is what you said, and you said this last week too, how something's up with the Ravens offense. It's not clicking. And it almost feels like the Ravens, front office and their coaches saying, maybe we should stack this defense and try and be more of like a really good defensive team and then hope our offense can pick it up. Because think about this in fantasy, man, because Emmet Weinman here, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. You've got the fantasy expert here. Remember last year, Mark Ingram was a top running back for fantasy. I mean, he was killing it. This year, no one in that Ravens backfield is relevant. Like, can you touch anyone in that Ravens backfield?
I was really high on J.K. Dobbins.
Me too.
Told everybody to grab him in the 11th, 12th round. Just take a flyer on him. Don't invest anything huge. Just due to the fact that I'm with you on Ingram. I can't trust Ingram. I was saying stay away from him, especially if you got to spend a 4th, 5th round, 6th round pick on him. It's just not worth it. There's other guys that are better. But yeah, with Dobbins, I liked him a lot. I mean, number one, he was an absolute workhorse at Ohio State. There was games where he was carrying the ball 30 times consistently. I mean, this guy's an absolute workhorse. So, just due to the fact that, the Ravens are one of the best, I thought going into the year that the Ravens would continue as one of the best rushing offenses in the league. To have a guy like Dobbins would just, if Ingram got hurt, it would just be immense upside just due to the fact that he would get so many carries, which he's used to, in a really good offense with a good offensive line, weapons, Lamar Jackson, and the whole 9 yards. So I was high on him. He hasn't been it just because he hasn't been getting the carries. But look, I'm not all for the analytics, but I do look at them, and the analytics do say that Dobbins is doing really good on yards per touch and stuff like that, where he's showing explosiveness. So I don't want to drop him, but I want to hold on to him because I'm not giving up. He spent the 2nd round pick on him for a reason.
Yeah, no, I just don't. I give him the ball. He is clearly the most talented back. Mark Ingram, he's a great locker room guy, and he used to be a really good running back. He's clearly a little bit, he's clearly washed up a little bit. He's not who he was anymore. I know that they really like whatever Justice Hill or whatever his name is, but give Dobbins the ball. Gus Edwards, especially because he is averaging the most yards per rush. He did show that at Ohio State he can take that ball as many times a game as he wants, and he can catch it too. I just don't understand why they're not using him more, because the run game is awesome. It was so awesome last year, and they haven't lost anyone, so I just don't know what stopped maybe then other than defensive coordinators kind of figuring Lamar out a little bit. I
think that's it. That is it.
Yeah, it must be, and that's why Lamar has to develop that second layer of his pass game, and maybe he will get that going eventually. But right now, that is why I don't know if I could pick the Ravens as a team to go out of the AFC, because I just can't see Lamar develop that pass game unless they can get someone like you saying, J.K. Dobbins, really going to open things up more. All right, let's move on here so we can get this last segment done and then go into the fantasy part of this. Everybody that has been listening to us the past couple weeks knows that Emmet Weinman hosts the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. You can check out his shows twice a week on any podcast platforms. He is our resident Cowboy fan. We bring him on, and we always talk about the Cowboys because that's our resident Cowboy fan. There's so many Cowboys fans out there. You kind of have to have a resident Cowboy fan on your show so you can bring the listeners in. So he's our resident Cowboy fan. So we need to now discuss with Emmet what's going on with the Cowboys. All right, you guys knew this was coming. All the ones that are new to the show, this is where we go from here. So, Emmet, I'm going to give you the floor, man. What were your thoughts on Monday night? What are your thoughts on Zeke Elliott? And what are your thoughts on the team going forward?
Oh, man, there's so much to unravel.
Yeah.
Go to my podcast for the full version.
There you go.
In a nutshell, Monday night, they just got outplayed. Look, they got blown out. Aaron Rodgers got blown out. It happens. They got blown out. No other way around it. Their defense was the same. Nothing changed. They get beat up the middle. The Kenyon Drake run was ridiculous. There was so much turf wide open. I couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. Christian Kirk wide open on the deep ball. You knew they were going to get one of those. Offensively, I mean, Andy Dalton is not Dak Prescott. I said that on my Saturday show. I mean, he's not Dak Prescott. So when Dak Prescott goes down 21-0, he's going to bleach a lot of things and make it look really good. Andy Dalton can't do that. But the big problem with their team, personnel-wise, I think, is offensive line. They're just getting absolutely hammered there. Their tackles are basically undrafted guys, and they're blitzing every play against the Cowboys, and that's why they couldn't get anything going on offense. The receivers didn't have any big plays, and Arizona just took advantage of the defense. Going forward, I mean, look, I know everybody's probably seen the James Slater tweet. I mean, who knows if it's true? It's anonymous. If it is true, it's chicken crap. You know what I want to say, but it's really cowardice at the end of the day.
For sure.
But this stuff's got to change for the boys in terms of accountability. I mean, McCarthy's really got to come in, get his program installed, mold these players. If these guys aren't buying in, they got to go. I mean, we can't have this, owner first, executive first way where it's, Jerry controlling everything. He's got the power. He's making the decisions. So, I mean, McCarthy's really got to grasp his culture, get it going, and you got to give him time for that.
No doubt. And so, first of all, like Emmet said, Emmet Weinman hosts the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. Look, go check out his shows. He'll get much more deep into the Cowboys and fantasy football and all that stuff. It's great. But look, see, this is the thing. You're spot on. First of all, it's complete chicken crap. All right, like you cannot do that. These are grown men. Right? This isn't like toddler football. This isn't even college football. You can't go around talking crap about your coach behind the back 6 weeks in to his first year there. Like it's 6 weeks in. You gotta, if you have a problem, say it to his face. If you have a problem, say it to the defensive coordinator's face. And then also, the players take blame for this too. They're playing terrible. The defense is playing terrible. Jalen Smith, what in the world are you doing? You just got a huge contract. I know you have a great story, but you look terrible. 2 years ago, he was in the conversation for one of the best young linebackers in the league. And then this came, and then now look at him. So, I mean, and then this is my biggest problem because this is what I said on my show. I don't blame the Cowboys defense. We knew what the Cowboys did. When someone tells you what they are, believe them. We've seen for the last whatever weeks that the Cowboys defense is booty. It's terrible. The only reason why it wasn't blown up more is because Dak was there to keep them in the games and bring them back. Okay? Andy Dalton, you said it, I said it. Who thought that Andy Dalton, we've seen for him 8 years in Cincinnati. Who thought he was going to come in and be Dak Prescott? No one should have thought that. This is my problem. What in the world is wrong with Zeke Elliott, man? I mean, dude, he got the ball, and this is when I actually give McCarthy credit. Because when Dak went out, I said, McCarthy, you have to adjust. You cannot play Andy Dalton like he's Dak. What does that mean? You have to give the ball to Zeke as many times as possible. And what does McCarthy do? He comes out and gives the ball to Zeke 11 of the first 14 plays, whether it's handing it off or targeting to him. And Zeke did nothing with it but fumble twice. He's had two 100-yard games in the last 14 games. This man is making almost $100 million. Like, what is going on with Zeke Elliott? How do you feel about him?
I mean, that's the tough part about it is you're paying these guys big contracts and they're not coming up. And you're right. I mean, that's not – some of this stuff isn't coaching. I mean, coaching is not going to fix bad effort on –
No, that's not – coaching's not fixing that. You're spot on. There's no way.
Coaching's not going to fix fumble. I mean, coaching – look, it's not like McCarthy's not telling him Zeke don't fumble. I mean, come on. Every coach is saying that. So, I mean, that's on Zeke. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't think he even knows what to say. Jalen Smith, I agree with you. Missing tackles, he's a liability in coverage. I mean, it looks like he has drop foot again, if I got to be honest with you. I mean, Van Der Esch not being there has really hurt their defense. But he was back. They kind of rushed him back from the collarbone. I mean, he did all right, but, I mean, the only thing with him is he's got a lot of injury history.
I feel for him.
I mean, their D-line, they get blown up. I mean, that's stuff you can't fix. I mean, that's on personnel, and I think that's why I'm saying with McCarthy, you can't be saying 6 games in, we got to make a change. I mean, he hasn't installed what he wants on his defense, what he wants on his offense with his players. I mean, these aren't his players. You got to think about that.
No,
these are mostly Jason Garrett's and Jerry's players. for being honest. So he's got to install what he wants, and if it continues like this, I could definitely see them making a change, maybe at a coordinator position or changing a lot of these players.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come right back, I'm going to ask him one more question about the Cowboys. Stay tuned for that. And then Emmet is going to give you guys everything. I'm telling you, man, he's been hitting it spot on every single week. You guys want to listen to this. He's going to give you a rundown position by position of who to play. He said play Kyler Murray on Monday night. And, man, that dude only had 9 completions, but he put up points. And he actually won me my league, so I was very appreciative of that. All right, so we'll be right back after this. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. We've got my man, Emmet Weinman, with us. Be right back after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Wherever you are, however you're listening, we appreciate you for joining the show. We are entering quarter number 4, segment number 4. Throw up the 4 fingers. We got my man, Emmet Weinman, here to talk to us about all of our great fantasy lineups, what we're going to do as we're, getting towards time's flying, man. We're 7 weeks in now. It's crazy. It goes by so fast. You want it to get here so quick, and then next thing you know, you're already 7 weeks in, and it sucks. But it's exciting, man. We got a lot of great things going on. We got Big Ten coming back in college football, so that's going to be an awesome, weekend of football. And then we've got Week 7 of the NFL. If you guys are just now tuning in, we segment 3, me and Emmet went over all the breaking news, the big storylines going on in the real football side of things. Tua, the game of the week, Pittsburgh and Titans. And then we're also talking about the Cowboys here. Emmet Weinman, resident Cowboy fan of the show. So one last question for Emmet before we move on to fantasy things here. Emmet, this is what, and we talked about this briefly, off air, but look, you actually just made me rethink of this by what you said at the end with, this is not McCarthy's talent. This is not his roster. And a lot of people coming into this season thought that this roster was Super Bowl capable. And even with Dak in there, I mean, if it wasn't...
I got to stop you there.
What? No.
Stop with the Super Bowl. Every year, bro. Every year the Cowboys are in the Super Bowl.
I know.
Every year. That's the hype.
That's Cowboys fans. I get that. That's a lot of Cowboys fans, and I'm not saying you do that. Every year they say that. But even some serious analysts were saying, like, this could be with the bringing in CeeDee Lamb. They brought in freaking, what's the rookie cornerback, Trayvon Diggs, they thought was going to be, I mean, I think he's going to be a good player eventually.
A+ draft class, A+.
All that. But anyways, this is my thing, okay? You're not, if you win the NFC East, whoop-de-doo, you win it at 5 games, then you get mollywopped by 15 points in the first round. I don't see how any reasonable, and that's why I like to bring you on, and you're laughing at the delusional fans here. I'm talking about how any reasonable Cowboy fan would actually want to win this division, when instead you can say, hey, if we win 4, 5, 6 games, we're getting a top 10, top 12 pick. Dak Prescott's coming back. We take someone for the defense. Dak's back. Why would you rather not have that than try and win this NFC East.
I know, man. We're going to get one of these quarantine Big Ten linebackers on our team. I'm looking forward to it. That's what I want. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to get the scouting out. We got Washington this week, Philly next week. You lose those two, you might as well start scouting. Get these players queued up, ready to go. There's some good names out there.
For sure.
I'm all for it, man. I love the draft. If you're going to give me a high pick, man, let's have some fun.
And
let's get the defense fixed. Let's get the line fixed.
For sure.
Try to build for the future.
For sure. And
I'm all for it.
That's why I was, that is a reason. Cowboys fans out there, I love you guys. You guys are fun to talk to. But some of you guys, man, just sitting up here we're still going to win the NFC East. What does that mean? How? That does nothing. You do not want.
And host Green Bay in a playoff.
Yeah. You don't want that. That is something you do not want. I said this on my show, if you have Dak Prescott, that's different because Dak can have, even if you're not that great of a football team, Dak can get hot and he can win any game. Exactly. He can get hot and win every game. You're not doing that with a guy that's never even won a playoff game before in Andy Dalton. So it's just so dumb when you can get a really good pick, Dak comes back, and your team's looking better. CeeDee Lamb's in his second year. Hopefully Zeke gets over whatever the heck is going on with him. And you'll see what happens from there.
Imagine if that O-line got healthy. That's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
Tyron Smith 100%. I know he's been hurt, so it's hard to rely on him. But getting La'el Collins back, one of the best right tackles in the league last year, was totally a non-factor, and he got hurt. And he's been nothing this year. That's why their offensive line has dropped significantly. So if you get those two guys back, get Zach Martin in there healthy, then the offense could be a whole different storm, even better than what it was before when Dak was playing.
No doubt. No doubt at all, man. So I'm with you, and I'm glad that you went that route for sure. So, all right, let's move on to fantasy, bro. Emmet Weinman here, host of the Fantasy Football Show. He talks all things football, but expert in fantasy here, of course. That's why we bring him on. So, Emmet, let's start it off, man. Every single week, he gives us his favorite matchup for every position. Started away, quarterback, week 7. Who you got?
The guy you said, Kyler Murray. He's going to be my number one play every week. And he is a clear example of a player who is a, fantasy champion, but, in real life, he makes some throws that are really questionable. I think a lot of his problems is he can't freaking see. He's 5'9". He can't see over the line. And you watch that Monday night, there was ball he was throwing early in the game where they were 10 yards ahead of the receiver. You're just like, what? What the heck is he doing? Just looking at it from a TV standpoint. But, he just can't see the receivers. But what he makes so good in fantasy is he can run. And rushing points and rushing touchdowns are extremely valuable. So when you have a quarterback that gets 50, 60 yards and a touchdown on the ground a game, that's like adding a slot to your team. Yeah. So he's extremely valuable in fantasy. I like him every single week.
And he's going against that awful Seattle defense, which is, right. It's actually, when it comes to yards allowed, it's actually worse than the Cowboys, their secondary. So Christian Kirk had a couple big plays. I could see that happening again with Kyler there. So I agree completely. All right, running back, who you got for week 7 running back?
Running backs, I got DJ. I love David Johnson. I just think that he's consistent. He's not the guy who's going to get, a 35-point game out of nowhere, but, he gives you a consistent floor, 10, 8, 12, 9. I don't care. I love consistency. So this week versus the Packers that just gave up 150 on the ground, I'll take him all day. Ronald Jones has broke out, done really well this year. I'll take him versus the Raiders. The Raiders, who knows if that game's going to be played. Their mess is not looking good. It's got moved to Monday night, so we'll see about that. Antonio Gibson versus the Cowboys. I don't even need to explain that one. And then Josh Kelly versus the Jags. He hasn't been getting the burn lately, but Jacksonville, you could run on them real easy. We've been saying this for 2 weeks now. They don't care about defense. So I'll take any player versus the Jags.
Yeah,
I'll take Jackson too if you got him.
I was just about to ask you that actually, because I saw that's a big debate going on with some people, because you saw last week DeAndre Swift had his coming out party against the Jags defense. Seems like everyone's doing that. So you're telling me if you have, I'm sure not a lot of people have both, but maybe for DFS, like if you could pick one or the other, you think Kelly might get the most carries, or you really just like them both and it's just splitting hairs?
They're splitting carries between him and Jackson. I mean, Kelly, I'd probably going forward, I like Jackson more, but I think I like Kelly for this game because I think the Chargers are going to attack him with just straight up running it up the middle. I mean, they got to be the worst rushing defense, if not one of the worst in the league. So yeah. I mean, he gets volume every game, but I think this might be like a 20 or 20 carry game for him.
Okay, very interesting. Awesome. All right, and then Emmet Weinman here, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show, running down who his favorite matchups are, favorite players are for each position. Wide receiver week 7, who do you like most?
Let me ask you real quick. How's Julio? Injury report?
He's looking good, man. He's looking good. They put him as questionable because he didn't practice on Wednesday, but that was just they like to do that. They just kind of rest him. It's like a veteran, rest day type thing. But he's totally good to go.
I make $20 million. I'll rest my ankle.
Yeah.
He's starting my number one matchup. Galladay. I like him too versus Atlanta. I mean, both players on both sides I like. Claypool, I mean, out of nowhere. I mean, he's a guy I didn't really talk about. I should have talked about him more. I just briefly mentioned him before the draft. But I was really high on stashing either Deontay or Claypool just because, these Steelers receivers, they come out of nowhere and they break out. They know how to get the receivers. And what do you know? This Chase Claypool kid, 6'4", running 4'2", it looks like. The guy's a big body. I mean, he looks like Hernandez, so I got to be honest with you. On the field, looks like Aaron Hernandez. But really good player. I like him a lot. Tennessee, they're not good on defense, so he'll do really well. And those are my favorites.
Yeah.
I like A.J. Brown, too.
Okay.
I really like the way he's come on. I know it's versus Steelers, but I think the Steelers' secondary is pretty suspect aside from, Fitzpatrick. He's the one you got to worry about. But, Joe Hayden, those guys, they're creeping up in age. So I'll take a chance on Brown. He's been doing really well.
Yeah, I was about to say, the Steelers defense looked really good last week, but we all know who the quarterback was they were going up against. But let me ask you this, because I think this is a really interesting topic that is actually a big fantasy topic right now, and you hit it on the nail. Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, because I was with you. I really like Deontay Johnson. I have him actually in a lot of my leagues because I was so high on him. And then he got hurt, and it's kind of like Chase Claypool took that spot, so now he's back, but we don't know. Like, if you're a fantasy manager of Deontay Johnson, and you see, like you said, the Titans' defense, their secondary is awful, are you playing Deontay Johnson, or you kind of want to see first how much playtime he gets now that Chase Claypool has made a name for himself?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I'm really cautious with him, just due to the fact that, Claypool's been the guy. He's been just 2 games in a row now, had a touchdown above 12 points. I mean, he's looking really good.
That's
so
amazing.
I would stash Deontay, but don't release him because he's got some upside. But I'm very cautious with him this week. Yeah,
it's kind of crazy how Juju's just fallen off, too. And it's like Chase Pool.
Where's he been?
I know. It's nuts, man.
I mean, it's like 2 years in a row now. He hasn't done anything. I mean, where's Juju been?
I know.
He's on my sit list this week. This guy's like 3-4 games in a row now. 2, 3, 5, nothing.
Yeah, I don't know how you could play him right now after these last couple weeks. Like you said,
he's definitely
not doing anything. It's crazy, man. And people were loving him, man, in Pittsburgh and just all over, really. But he's completely disappeared. So awesome. A lot of wide receivers there you went through. I love that. Tight end. Tight end's interesting, man. The tight end position this year is just, it's so slim, dude. It's just such a hard position. There's not many things going on other than like the elite of the elite. I know you were high on Waller coming into the season, and I really was too. Who do you like this week for tight ends?
I like Hawkinson.
Yep.
Just due to the fact that it's versus Falcons.
Yeah, no.
I mean, he's been getting a touchdown a game, so he's either going to get you a touchdown or he's going to get you 60, 70 yards. I like him as a tight end too, but I think if as a streaming option, he's definitely a good start. Hunter Henry's got a real good matchup. Jacksonville, I mean, he should cook them. Dalton Schultz, I mean, this might be a good week for him to get back on track. Andy Dalton's going to want to get underneath. He's not going to be airing it out like Dak, but I don't know if Dalton Schultz will still get his red zone targets like he was before, which is a little questionable. And then Waller the baller. I mean, the guy's awesome. I mean, he's one of the – I honestly think just, fantasy aside, he's one of the best tight ends in the league, if not a top 4, top 5. I mean, he is just – the way he moves for somewhat his size is ridiculous.
I love that name, Waller the baller. That is awesome.
I've been saying it for 2 years because I was saying last year, get this guy.
Dude, I
loved him.
That's impressive, man. I really had no idea who he was until halfway through last year when I saw, he became Derek Carr's pretty much favorite target. And the thing with Waller the baller, which I think is really interesting, if you notice and of course you notice, but for the fans, when Henry Ruggs is out there to stretch the field, it makes Waller much better because less attention is on him. So being Ruggs finally healthy, you saw that last game against the Chiefs. Waller got back in, dominating, got a touchdown, all that stuff. So I agree, man. I love Waller going forward. I just love watching him play.
Yeah, I mean, I think Belichick said too. I mean, he's one of the. I mean, he didn't really say it straight up because he's Belichick, but I mean, he kind of. If you read the lines, he said he agreed that he was one of the best. Not like he agreed with me, but he agreed that he was one of the best tight ends in the league. So I just you turn on the film, man. I mean, you're right with Ruggs. Ruggs' role is more just stretching the field than it really is Ruggs actually making the big plays. He's going to get 2-3 a game, kind of like Deshaun Jackson did back in his heyday. But it's just more open up, get Waller in those one-on-one matchups because he is too big, too fast for a lot of those linebackers.
Definitely. All right, Week 7, Emmet Weinman here going through all the Week 7 best player for each position, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. Defense. Emmet always gives you guys a good defense. Unfortunately, he's been hitting it on the nail with Washington the first couple weeks to play any team against any defense that's playing Washington. Then he's been doing the Giants, and it's been working pretty well. We already had the Giants play, so who do you like this week for some of the best streaming options for defense?
I mean, Washington themselves ain't bad just because the Dallas O-line is beat up. I like... Dallas too. I mean, just Washington, they don't have a quarterback, so it's easy to fade them. But, obviously nobody's going to want to touch the Cowboys defense, and I get that. Kansas City playing, what you call it? I totally blanked on who they're playing.
They're playing Denver.
Yeah, Denver. That's why I like them, because Denver, they just kick so many field goals, they're not going to score. So
yeah, that's a good one.
You can take a shot with them. And they'll get pass rush as well. And then I think the Chargers, I mean, how can you not go against Gardner Minshew? I mean, we were talking off air. I mean, the guy is regressing like crazy. And, he's got the same problem as Kyler Murray. He's not able to see over the line. I don't know if you remember the Dolphins Thursday night game. There was a throw where the guy was so wide open. I mean, nobody was in sight. It was like he was driving and he hit him on he basically was pressured quick and he hit him he tried to throw the ball to him really fast. And it was 10 yards over his head. I mean, it was ridiculous. But it's the same problem with Kyler Murray. I mean, he can't see. But the thing separates him with Murray is he's nowhere near the athlete Kyler Murray is in terms of mobility and moving his feet. So
that's for sure.
That's why he's kind of just is what he is. He's a 6th-round pick for a reason.
No, that is for sure, man. It's kind of interesting with Minshew because he started off, last year he showed a little bit of shine that he could sling it here and there. And then week 1, he come out and beat the Colts, and it was a big upset and all that stuff. But, dude, since then, he has just looked awful. And it is interesting because he doesn't look as short as Murray. And I think that's because Murray is just so short. He just looks so short out there on the field. To me, Minshew doesn't look that short, but then when you go look him up, you realize, oh my God, that's a great, you texted me that off the air, and I was like, dang, is Minshew really that short? And I went and looked it up, and it was you're right, he is. You can tell then, and then you watch the film, and it's yeah, he really can't see much. Real quick, because we actually have 3 minutes here, and we went through it all. Emmet Weinman here, host of the GSMC Football Podcast. I want to bring something up, and this is bringing you off guard, but we talked about it off air. The Jets, man. The Jets, so listen, they're going to get the 1st-round pick. And we said how Trevor Lawrence, and I hate bringing this up because I hate doing this to the Jets fan base, but it's something realistic, how he might not want to go there. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
I mean, it's fun to just conspiracize, and I don't know if that's the word, but just trying to match
Sounds
it
right
all,
to me.
For him. What's he going to do? And I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, it's really hard at the end of the day. I mean, I don't think he wants to go to the Jets, but, with the first overall pick guaranteed locked, you really don't want to turn that down regardless of the team, the money, the endorsements. I mean, it's just too good to pass up. So as good as Lawrence is, and, I saw a tweet. I mean, it was funny as heck. What if that happens? He goes back, and then what if the Jets go 0-16 again? And then they have to get him. So that would be funny. But, I mean, I don't think that ever happens, to be honest with you. It's just, you're not going to pass on being the number one pick.
Yeah, and he just doesn't seem like that is a really funny tweet, man. Imagine that. That would just be karma. It would be like, all right, you got to go now. But it would be...
Keep Adam Gase. Just release everybody. Get rid of Quinnen Williams. Hopefully they trade him to the Cowboys. I'll take that. Just, get rid of all your players and get your Trevor Lawrence pick. Yeah,
dude, even Quinnen Williams, they're not using him right, dude. Like, if he went to the Cowboys, he would be a completely different player.
I don't care. Dude, he was a beast at Alabama.
Amazing.
You use him right my butt. Just get him on the team. I'll take him over Dontario Poe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
sure.
Saturday, Sunday.
No doubt.
So let's go. Get him on the team ASAP.
Yeah, because
if that's possible.
Because he's not doing anything on the Jets. And I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's just a big body there. It's like, show the guy to push through the pocket. Like, just go. He's a monster. But all in all, you're right. And it's really shocking to me that they haven't fired Adam Gase yet. I don't really know what they're waiting for, unless, which you just kind of said it, they know that they can just keep losing.
They just hold on to Adam Gase. Hold on to him. You only got about, 9 more weeks? You got 9 more weeks, Adam Gase, Jets fans, so hold on to him, or 10 more weeks, I should say, because it's 17 weeks of football. So 10 more weeks, Adam Gase. It's all right. Buckle up. 0-16, 1-15, whatever. Buckle up. It's okay. And then probably after the Week 17 game, they'll move on. But I don't think you got to worry about Adam Gase being back for the 2021 season. I don't think you got to worry about that if you're a Jets fan.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but that is so funny. Keep the coach, man. Keep the coach. Let him go on to 0-16. Let him keep hurting that record of his own, and then you guys can get your man Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, it's clear as daylight. I mean, the fact that they made a trade 5 minutes after the Dolphins game, it just says they're tanking. I mean, they literally traded the D-tackle 5 minutes after the Dolphins game ended. With the Dolphins. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. So
it is.
They're obviously going for Trevor. It's clear as daylight.
Yeah, they're going for Trevor. And then one last thing on Trevor. He just seems like such a good guy. He's just such he's kind of like Dak. Like, the thing about Dak, if some people, they want to criticize Dak, this, that, whatever. The one thing you cannot say about Dak is he is always talking to the media. He always shows up. It was Zeke that went and sat out in Cabo, not Dak. Dak showed up every day and answered questions. I love the way Dak holds himself. He's a true CEO, and I kind of see the same thing in Trevor Lawrence. He's one of those guys that he doesn't shy away from questions. He puts everything on his back. He's a leader. So I don't really see him kind of shying away from that number one pick. I think he'll accept the challenge and go. But it will be interesting, man. There's going to be a lot of really bad teams at the top of the draft this year.
Yeah, and they're going to be teams looking for quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yep, there's no doubt. Well, awesome, man. Emmet Weinman, host of the GSMC Fantasy Football Show. Go all platforms. Go check it out. YouTube as well. You can really find the show anywhere you want. Listen to it. Subscribe, comment, rate it, whatever. Comment on it. Tell him what you like about it. And he'll be back with us every Saturday to talk more about your fantasy lineups. Emmet, appreciate it, man. You have a good rest of your night.
You too, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Emmet Weinman of the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Go check out his show twice a week. This is, though, the GSMC Football Podcast, and we thank you all so much for tuning in today. It really was a pleasure. Really a pleasure that you guys tuned in and listened to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night. We love you. We'll talk to you again next week. Enjoy your Week 7 of football.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.